You're listening to Closing Market Weekly, the show where real estate closings meet real world insight. With your host, Phillip Hogan. And every week we break down the trends, tools, and the timing that keeps deals moving forward. Let's dive in. Hi, I'm Phillip Hogan, your host of Closing Market Weekly. Welcome to another episode. Many of you may know me as the CEO of Signing Services of America. And in that role, I have worked with hundreds of professionals within the mortgage industry talking about or doing or conducting transactions within those individuals. But one of the things that I've realized is that while we talk to one another, we don't talk with one another. And we're missing out on great information because we don't talk with one another. So Closing Market Weekly was created for allow professionals within the mortgage industry to talk with one another about the work that they do and possibly how they started their business. And so today's guest is someone I've had the wonderful pleasure of meeting and really building a strong professional relationship. And let me tell you a little bit more about my guest, and then you'll find out why he has become a guest. Ruben Kanya is a temporary housing specialist. He's an author, investor, speaker. Ruben helps real estate investors and Airbnb hosts 3 times their rental income with less turnovers and less headaches by landing lucrative midterm rental insurance contracts. As a temporary housing specialist and investor, Ruben co-founded Invested Escapes with his wife, Celine. Together, they lead a team that provides temporary housing solutions for displaced families by working directly with some of the top insurance and relocation companies in the nation. Ruben is also a licensed realtor in Massachusetts and Georgia, with his team a one-stop shop in Atlanta, helping hundreds of investors acquire, furnish, and operate their short-term and midterm rentals in, out of the state, and sometimes even out of the country. Invested Escapes is a nationwide temporary housing provider built on principles of a sound short-term rental hospitality business in service of displaced families while maximizing occupancy and profitability for their own properties and the ones they control. With this model, they've helped multiple investors achieve more rental profits with less turnovers and less headaches. Ruben and Celine own half a dozen properties between Atlanta and Cape Cod, Massachusetts, while controlling hundreds of properties nationwide. His team has helped facilitate hundreds of families and landlords create win-win partnerships with their on-demand leasing model across the nation. Ruben and his team has fostered deep relationships with the top insurance companies like Allstate, Farmers, State Farm, USAA, etc., and relocation companies such as Al Solutions, CRS, and others. His ongoing commitment is to the form strategic partnerships with both insurance, relocation companies, and to continue to educate as many short-term rental operators as possible on fulfilling the much-needed demand of relocating displaced families. Ruben, welcome to the show.
Hey, Philip, thanks for having me, man. This is long overdue, but we're here. We did it.
Yes, we did, right? Yes, we
Yeah.
did.
And you did it. I mean, look at your setup, man. I got to give you flowers on the air. This is the evolution of your brand. I mean, I'm looking at myself. I'm like, I got to get myself a nice background like yours. I got to get all sophisticated. What you're doing is amazing. So thanks for having me on here, man. This is good stuff.
Well, thank you, Ruben. And so let's bring the audience up to speed as to what's going on. So before we get in more into about you, Ruben, and so how did I meet you? Well, in 2024, I hired a company to find me different shows I could appear as a guest on podcast shows. And so Ruben was one of the shows that I was invited to be a guest. And we, really struck it up, had a great show. And Ruben is also the owner of a editing company called Invested Talents. And he was nice enough to show me the work that Invested Talent does. And so lo and behold, I said, you know what? I'm going to need that at some point in my life as a podcaster, right? But just didn't know where, when, and how I was going to use it, but I knew it could be beneficial. So when the company that I hired to find podcasts in 2024 came back and said, well, Phillip, we'd like to work with you again to do again in 2025. I said, you know what? I think I'm going to go on my own. So part of the process had already been done because I had invested talents, right, that does all the content editing, right? And so it's just a matter of calling Ruben, saying, "Hey, Ruben, it's that time." And sure enough, Ruben got on the air and we had a great conversation. And as a result, all of my content editing is done by his company, Invested Talents, and they are doing a fantastic job. So thank you, Ruben, for not only inviting me to your show, but also extending yourself as as a business owner to a business owner, and seeing what potential could be if I were just willing to accept. And I accepted. And so here we are.
Hey, listen, I stand on the shoulders of giants. So kudos to the whole team because without the team, there is no, the ability to elevate other brands like yourself. So I'm very, very happy and grateful to hear those words. And hey, we're just getting started.
Oh my goodness, are we? We sure are. So,
Yeah,
so Ruben, welcome to the show. Thank you for taking some time out to spend with us. So
for sure.
tell us, how did you get started, right? And in the area of business that you're in, real estate.
Yeah. So I started off by I've always been very inquisitive and like very curious. And I started off as a student. I'm still a student to this day. And I don't know if you know this, Chief Phillip, so you might actually get a kick out of this, but I wanted to be a real estate investor. I didn't necessarily know where to start, but I knew proximity was everything.
Mm,
So I thought, okay, uh, A, I was a big fan of documenting the process, right? Like I was a big, well, not even for social, but just for myself, so I can look back. As you're kind of reading that intro, there's a lot of like challenges and good times and hard times that I like think about the each process you were talking about. And for the interest of like building something, it'd be just phenomenal to be able to just look back and see the projection and trajectory of or the trajectory of your growth along the way. So I'm like, I'm going to document the journey, and part of the journey was my real estate journey, where at first it was just getting education and understanding, okay, there's so many real estate models out there, which
mhm,
one do I learn from? So the best thing I thought of, why don't I just interview people who have done the thing, who
mm,
have walked the walk and talked the talk, so I can get in proximity. And one thing, for any listeners out there, people love to hear themselves speak,
mhm,
but there's a lot of successful business operators out there who never get the light of you know media coverage of any kind. And
mhm,
so when you ask them
mhm,
to, hey, I have a show,
mhm,
I'd love to kind of connect with you and hear a little bit more about your story. I
mhm,
mean, they're lining up because people love to talk about themselves. But I think what's more important to share is that I had an imposter syndrome because I before I reached out to the first guest on my show, I started doing a lot of solo episodes. That was fun. I was documenting the journey, but I had an imposter syndrome where I said, hey, like if I reach out to this individual, I don't even own a piece of real estate. They're
mm,
gonna look at me and say, "Oh, you got a real estate show, but you don't own real estate." So I
mm,
let that almost get in the way of the bigger
mm,
blessing. And when I was able to overcome that limiting belief, I can tell you after 340 plus episodes, no one's ever asked about my portfolio, nor does it matter because they're talking about themselves. And so the first guest that I landed on my show was Vinny Chopra. He had 300 million assets under management. Never asked to be once how many properties I own, but the knowledge that I gained from him, he was a
mm.
multifamily syndicator, opened up a lot of doors for other guests, a lot of other connections, and that network still to this day pays dividends. And that's how all my businesses were built, by the way, including Invested Talent, which I'm more
Mm.
than happy to talk about the trajectory of Invested Talent and then Invested Escapes. But I wanted to just give you that insight first. It just all started from curiosity.
And they say, some people say curiosity killed the cat, but it also, some other people say, but it kept them coming back, right?
Hmm,
And and so
like that.
you continue to come back and not be discouraged. And I think entrepreneurs, particularly new entrepreneurs, need to understand and hear from an experienced entrepreneur that consistency is the name of the game, right? That
Yeah.
you have to find ways to encourage yourself, and either from within, or your support systems, or reaching out to like-minded individuals and spend time with them so that they can kind of like encourage you, by their stories and their experiences as to what they had to overcome in order to reach their level of success, whatever that is. But interestingly, you said that you did research because you wanted to get into real estate investing, and you sought out those who could maybe speak with you, guide you, or explain to you how they got started. And as a result, from those conversations and coupled with your own passion for wanting to get into real estate investing, you launched your first project. Is that correct?
Yeah, no, and if I may take a step back, because there's it's interweb. And this is the thing, when you get
Yeah.
started, you don't know exactly how you're gonna get there. You just need to know. One of my mentors says, define the what, not the how. The how is gonna unpack. I could not have predicted this, right?
Mhm.
But action definitely leads into some form of reaction, and you'll get feedback from the marketplace, and then opportunities when you take action.
Right.
So me taking that action, fast forward, I got a gentleman named Jamie Gruber who comes on. And by the way, this gentleman is multifamily again. At the time, it's interesting because, I started to attract, well, I had this multifamily syndicator, and now that opens up the door for the next person. I'll interview you. It's the Jones effect. Hey, I just interviewed Phillip last week. Can I interview you? Oh, well, if you interviewed Phillip, of course. Phillip's a guy of integrity and a great business owner. Of course, I'll come on your show. So then that starts to happen. It starts to create a domino effect. But I had Jamie Gruber come on my show, and he's like, hey, Ruben, I love what you're doing with your content. Because I'm just documenting the journey and showcasing them. I'm not making it about me. And this is what I love about being I like being on the other side. I don't necessarily, because you learn more by listening than you do of talking.
Yeah.
So I've always liked being a host.
agree.
This is
Yeah.
what the power is in your hands right now.
Right.
You get to extract as much knowledge as you want. So I
Right.
was doing that as well. And I think it's really important because I just had one of my good partners is doing an amazing business owner. And he was talking about how it's really important that you get in proximity to the people who are doing the thing, right? As much as you can love your friends and family, they're there to protect you and say,
So
that's too
Ruben,
risky.
let's repeat that. Get in proximity of the people that are doing the thing. Say it again. Say it again.
It is so important for you to get in proximity to the people who are doing the thing, not talking about the thing, but doing the thing.
So in other words, people, you want to be around folks that are doing the do, not talking about. You can have people who are talking about it, right? But the greater inspiration and the greater encouragement and the greater belief is of those who are committed to doing the thing.
And if I may add, Phillip, it's
Yes.
insight. It's insight. I don't just want to, I'll get inspired, sure, but someone who's walked the walk and has been down the path might say, hey, don't go left, go right. Why? Because I've been there. Or they have the insight that, hey, 10 years ago, that would have worked. But if I was in your shoes, Ruben, knowing what I know today, here's what I would do. You don't get that from someone from the outside in that loves you, that wants to protect you, and sometimes it's close people to you. Don't take that risk. You get it from someone who's actually done the thing in their era, in their timeline, and has context of your current situation in your current era. That is mentorship 101. That is a mastermind. And you can actually get that by interviewing someone and saying, hey, if you were me at X amount, or here's my favorite one, just to put some, I'll get back to the Jamie Gruber thing, but when you're interviewing someone, just say, hey, the audience, aka me, wants to know, how did you overcome this? Because guess what? If you're doing a good job interviewing, you are your avatar, you are your audience. And so the questions that you're actually getting answered not only help you, but other people who are in your same shoes. And that's how you build a community of like-minded people. Because you're like, man, I swear it's like Phillip's in my head. He's asking questions that exactly I have, because I'm the student as well. So it's so powerful to go to the source. Right, it's like that game telephone. It's like, what if you tell me something?
So,
then you
wait, hold on. You're saying you're dropping some gems here, man. And I want to make sure that we're highlighting those gems so that everybody gets it. You have to go to the source.
Go to the source,
right? And
because
so the source in this case would be what? Just give us some context.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if I want to be a real estate syndicator,
Yes.
I'm going to go with someone who recently just closed on a syndication like 2 weeks ago. And
Very
I'm going
good.
to go to the person who closed a syndication 10 years ago because
And
they're
how do
going to
we?
have context.
And so, how will we find a syndicator?
Okay, so and for me,
Mm,
I'm not a real estate syndicator, but I'm going to show you how it kind of led me to the path that I'm on today.
mhm,
But I think what I always say, and this is for regardless what age you're in or season of your life,
mhm,
I always say I think it's so important that you find somebody that you would trade places with.
mm,
Like this is someone that like I like their core values, I like what they stand for, I like
mhm,
their lifestyle.
mhm,
I don't want to follow someone's guidance who maybe has a lot of money but is miserable and doesn't have a good relationship with their family because that
mm,
doesn't really align with my core values. So if
mhm,
you find someone, which to answer your point, I get inspiration from books, I get inspiration from podcasts because I listen to podcasts, I get information from inspiration from people I follow on YouTube, and now with the social media, it's so easy to get a quick glance of like, hey, this is probably somebody that I want to discover more and get to know. I've
mm,
gotten a chance to know people a lot through shows like yourself because
mm,
the way Phillip asks questions, his integrity, I could just tell the kind of person that he is.
mm,
And then pick a few, but not too many people, because I
mm,
feel if you pick too many people, the message starts to contradict. And guess what? Everybody can win with their own formula. But what happens? This is the problem, I believe, in this day and age. There's so much noise. The grass is always greener. Everything works. You can win a storage business, a notary business, or commercial real estate, trading. That if you listen to too many mentors, it's going to freeze you. So I
mhm,
would pick a handful, maybe one
mm,
or two or three people,
mhm.
right? And then go deep rather than going broad. I
Right.
think what's happening in
Mhm,
this day and age, we get inspired by somebody. Oh, I'm following this guy. He's a trader. I'm following this guy. He sells cars. I'm following this
mhm,
guy. He's like, he flips, he's doing Turo. And all
mhm.
of a sudden now I'm freezing because I don't know which
Or
route I
trade it
should go
yourself.
deep in.
Right.
Right.
And so that's good, Ruben, because
Mm.
I agree. The internet is a breeding ground for potential success, right?
Oh,
But if
absolutely.
you don't have that filter, right? And that's that what you're talking about is putting on a filter
I
to
like
kind of
that.
like, really, screen out, okay, is this information is good, but is it really good for me? Right. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Because remember, the internet is speaking to billions of people globally, right? And so you have to really, as a listener and a person who's aspiring to get into real estate investing, really determine, what channel should I tune into, and what person within that channel should I tune into, and then what is that person saying? There may be a 15-minute conversation, but at that
Mhm.
15-minute conversation, there may be 2 minutes of content that's really relevant for me. And
Yeah.
that's and so you have to have your listening ears on and really be able to kind of like dissect what people are
Yeah.
saying to find out what it is that they really need to hear. But Ruben, I want to make sure that our audience really understands that you first started. Is it correct to say that you first started in Airbnb?
Yeah, and
Okay,
I
great.
want to bring it, and I want to bring it full circle. So I'm gonna get to Jamie Gruber, then I'm gonna get to the Airbnb, and then
Go
you'll
for it.
understand where I'm at. Let me just add one more thing though that I think is really important on the last topic we just said about getting a lot of, kind of going deep, and there's a lot of noise. I will say this is what I stand by: experiment, fail, and repeat.
Mm,
I believe, and I was just telling this to my brother-in-law, younger than me. He's like, "Hey, I might want to try this." Here's the challenge.
mhm,
I think
mhm,
personally, from experience, that in the beginning, it's important that you get a taste, right? It's kind of like if I say, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? I don't know. How are you going to know? You haven't gotten an experience. So in the beginning, you got to experiment a lot of different things. I experiment a lot of different things, but very quickly. So I'm like, I like this or I don't like that, right?
mhm,
And then once you identify the thing that you actually might really like and you resonate with, you use that word resonate, then go deep. But
mhm.
in beginning, it's very hard, I think, for people because they don't get started or they don't maybe even just stick your foot in and then see, feel how warm the temperature is and kind of put your whole leg in there and then kind of
Right,
just go discover it a little bit,
r-
right? But
right.
and I think it's hard if you just don't take any action at all and you stay surface level, you're not going to know if you actually truly like something. Because I will preface by saying this now, I look at things in 10-year things. Like, if I'm not going to be doing this for the next 10 years, I'm not doing it, or it's not it's an opportunity that I'm turning down. It's just white noise. I don't
Uh-huh.
want to hear it. I
Mm.
need to stay laser focused and locked in. If
Right.
it aligns with the 10-year trajectory, then it's still back in focus and we'll add it on to the journey. So
Mhm.
I think it's important to share that, because someone might hear this and like, well, I don't know what I want to do. Well, you just haven't experimented enough, and you
Mhm.
you should, and you should do it fast, because I think the quicker you can get those experiences, and the younger the better. But it doesn't matter if you're in a season of your life where you can start exploring, like, maybe I'll try this, see how it is, I'll try sailing, I'll try scuba diving, right? And then then I want to get more lessons, or I'll see what it's like to drive a Porsche. Oh, I
Mm.
really like that. All right, right, we talked about this stuff, right? So I think that's
So
important.
time out, time
Yeah,
out, time
yeah,
out. So what
yeah,
I was waiting for a moment to share this, and I think now's the time. So, audience. So Ruben, based in Atlanta, and so Ruben and I really began talking, and sure enough, come to find out, he was in Atlanta, and we hooked up. And oh my gosh, we had a great breakfast in Virginia Hills, which is a wonderful section of Atlanta, and had some great conversation, took some wonderful photos. I wish there was some way I could share with the audience those photos that we took. And then he decides to, we have a Porsche dealership in Atlanta, and not only that, but also a test trial
yes,
track, right?
sorry.
So Ruben had a date to test trial, one of the vehicles that he really likes. And I haven't yet got a chance to hear how that went, right? Maybe that's another show, right? But the point that I'm making here is that it's about working hard and playing harder, right?
Absolutely.
It's about really being able to have some rewards to your hard work. And we have different ways of rewarding ourselves. And in your case, it's test driving the Porsche. In my case is going scuba diving, and
Yeah,
taking films of some wonderful underwater species. Whatever really kind of like blows your whistle, really. After working hard, you need to find some time to reward yourself for the hard work that you've done. And Ruben is a great example of that. And I'm a living example of what he has proven to be what works for him. So please continue,
absolutely.
Ruben.
Absolutely. And let me bring it full circle as well, because
Yeah.
I like to be very intentional. Everything I do with family and friends. I actually had a mastermind member, which is essentially a client and a partner of mine who also
Mm,
loves cars,
mm,
and we went on the racetrack together as well. And so I like sharing moments and milestones intentionally
mm,
within my business. But
mm.
I know you asked me the question, so let me help get there,
Yeah.
because you asked me a question. We went down a few different rabbit holes.
Yeah.
How did I even get into the investment avenue that I'm in today? So the
Yes.
thing, Jamie Gruber comes on my show and says, "Hey, Ruben, I love what you're doing. Your content. Can you do it for us?" One of the things, my rules of thumb is speed. So I always commit if it's an alignment. Again, I say yes, and then I figure it out. Originally, what occurred is I had a content. I was doing content for my own brand for the show. I had editors, etc. Like the team that you're using today, they've been with me for over 10 years, and we were doing a lot of content, but for ourselves. We had never done it for a client like you and I, Philip, right? We had never done that before, but I said yes anyway. That was one of the best decisions that I said, because I always believe that if I have integrity and I say yes, it's going to force me to commit and figure out how to do it the right way. So I
Hmm.
said yes, of course we could do it for you.
Hmm.
Jamie Gruber, and I can't remember the episode number, but very early on ended up being a super connector, which means this gentleman was part of a mastermind called M1. And as a super connector that he is, when we started to produce his podcast and show and brand, multifamily and more, this guy had chapters across the nations of these multifamily groups. And he was big on social, big voice. And he's the type of person that, again, when I say super connector, is like, what's Jamie up to? Who's doing this stuff for Jamie? So what ended up happening was everyone in his mastermind, M1 stood for, I think you had to make 7 figures plus. So I was in good company. I didn't have 7 figures at the time by any means, right? But this was the kind of people I was surrounded with. My own clients had more
Hmm.
money than I did, and now it opens up a lot more doors. This is very important, because once we said yes to Jamie, he brought on all my business, almost like 90%, all referral. Who's doing your podcast? Ruben's team is invested talent, booking call, discovery call, discovery call. Next thing you know, I'm giving this guy some kind of kickback. I'm like, you literally just helped me build my entire business because you're super connected and everyone trusts you. But at the same time, we were ready for the opportunity and we did a good job. So that's how Invested Talent was born. Invested Talent was born as we were doing our own show. Someone asked for their show. We said yes. Proof of concept for everyone else. Everybody else joined on board. So then you asked me the question how I got into Airbnb. One of his clients or partners from M1, Michael Shogun, comes on episode 91. Right. So now I'm dating myself, right? We're in the 340s now. Episode 91, Michael Shogun comes on and he said, hey, Ruben, I retired my wife. I retired myself and my mother in 18 months with this model called Airbnb. Now, you got to understand, I'm interviewing syndicators. I'm also just inquisitive. I'm curious. I'm listening to Bigger Pockets, which is a real estate platform, education. And Airbnb really never crossed my mind, right? I was thinking based on, again, this is why it's important. Who you surround yourself will open up new avenues for you. And a mind that is stretched can never go back to its old dimensions. So when you get an idea that is planted by someone who's doing the thing, it's not like it's BS, because this is the thing that he's telling his story. It's not someone who's saying, oh, don't try that, it doesn't work. This is a guy who's made it work. So let's unpack that. We unpacked that on a show. I'm like, hold on, wait a minute. I heard a lot of the things that you said. I always thought 100% occupied was better than 40% occupied. Are you telling me that because the math ain't mathing. The math started to math. I looked, and anytime I have insight like this, I went all in. I focused on his content. I focused on, mind you, he was a client of ours. So all the episodes he's recording is talking about this. I get in proximity to this gentleman. My wife and I end up buying our first Airbnb. The next thing you know, we get multiple Airbnbs. We start to scale with the cash flow, etc. And then another client from the agency is talking about these insurance bookings that are coming in. And we're in the same market in Atlanta, and she's showing me like a $15,000 a month rental where traditional rent might be $4,000. I'm like, hold on, what's going on here? Do I need to put on my listening hat again? Absolutely. I'm a student for life. I'm like, enlighten me. What don't I know? Because I know Airbnb, but now you're talking about corporations who are renting out to you on a temporary notice. Let's unpack that. Go all in again. That was Dr. Rachel Gainsborough. And then here's where we are today. But again, another podcast guest comes on my show, Will Dotson. Huge shout out to him. Taps me on the shoulder. He's like, Ruben, you're playing too small. Don't just stay in Georgia because you have properties in Georgia. Own nothing, control everything. Go nationwide. I'm like, what? Maybe there's something I don't understand here. Enlighten me. So I'm sharing all this to say, all these opportunities came from taking action and being inquisitive and saying, all I know is that I don't know anything. Tell me more. And the second you stop learning is the second you stop growing. And so I have to say, a vehicle for me has been the podcast, because it's like a mastermind on wheels, a masterclass on wheels. And I get a chance to extract knowledge. And then most importantly, form real relationships along the way that can help me and open up more doors.
So, Ruben, I just learned something new. So, podcasting was the gateway to your real estate investment success.
100%.
I never thought that. I thought it was just the opposite. Oh, you did. Wow, that is so cool.
Listen, when I say, it's so funny because I have this ongoing joke with my brother, and he thinks it's a joke, but it's hilarious. It's the truth. I'll be like, Nathan, it's my older brother. Nathan's because of the podcast. And he's jokes around, and he'll laugh and be like, Ruben, not everything is about the podcast. I'm like, no, it really is. Like, I met this person because of the podcast. So I'll joke with him now. Like, we'll reach a specific milestone or something. I'm like, hey, it's because of the podcast. Like, and he's like, but now it's not even a joke. It's reality.
It's reality.
Any relationship that I've made or door that's been open or any big milestone came from the podcast. By the way, it's free. It doesn't really cost you anything.
Well, it doesn't cost you anything monetarily, but you have to be willing to give up your time, right? You have to be willing to invest. You have to be, obviously, in a podcast, you had to build a structure for someone to be able to come on to your forum and be able to share the information that they have. And the content that you're putting out was attractive enough to them to say, listen, I want to be on your show. So unlike you seeking them out, they sought you out. Is that correct?
It's interesting. because now it's the other way. They're seeking us out, and agencies are reaching out, and we have
Yeah.
to actually decide what's in alignment with us and say no or say yes. But in the beginning, it was totally me seeking them out, and still to this day, I'm very strategic on who I like to podcast with, and not in a strategic on like what can I get out of it, but more of like, hey, this is actually something I'm very curious about. I'd love to learn more. Let's get this guy on the show because I've never, and like it's unbelievable. I mean, still to this day, I'm just blown away. Now I just have to filter and say, hey, this is interesting. Let me put it in my memory bank. Maybe this is something we do in season 2. Or I'll say this is nice. Or in my situation now, it's also how can I help you? At the end of every show, I say, hey, what can I do to be a super connector like Jamie? Because that's a huge value add
Right.
to have.
And I think the audience needs to really hold on to exactly what's happening here. And sometimes it's seeing you. It's easier for me, at least, to understand it. But many people listen to podcasts opposed to watching the podcast. So for those
Sure.
listeners, please understand that Ruben first started his success as a real estate investor as a podcast host. Right, his show was the first thing that really is the foundation, not he getting into real estate investing and then realizing, oh, I can start a podcast. By the
Yeah.
way, it was just the opposite. And so if you ever the moral of the story here, Ruben, right, is that sometimes we don't know the outcome, but we have to get started, right? And you just got to be willing to start where you are with what you have, and let the growth of what
Mm.
you are doing attract those that really want to be with you. And as a new podcaster, that's really encouraging,
Oh
Ruben.
my gosh.
You know what I
You're
mean?
just getting warmed up. This is what I'm saying. This happened in episode 91. Now here's what's important, right? Most people don't get past, I think, I don't know what the statistics are, but I think it's don't get past 20 episodes. I think
Mm.
you're in the top percentile if you're past 20 or something like. I think it's less, honestly. So you have to think about this breakthrough, for lack of better words, and I wouldn't even call it a breakthrough, but insight was planted in episode 91, right?
91. Wow.
91.
91.
So you have to keep going without
Yes.
kind of knowing where things can take you. Now, mind you, I was very clear on what I wanted to
So
be in. That's
Ruben, how many
right.
episodes were you doing a week back then?
Once a week, or yeah, once a week.
Once a
That
week.
cadence. Yeah.
All right. So that's what we're doing. We're doing 91. You got me hold on to that number, right? We're doing once a week, right? And it's
Yeah.
working for us, right? And it's a slow grind, right? And it's a slow
Oh.
grind. You know what I mean? Sometimes you have to envision where you want to be. And then
Mhm.
when you wake up, realize, okay, by consistency, I've arrived. And
Yeah.
and therefore you just never know. But what I've also learned is that you never know what's on the road waiting for you. What's on the path to come to you.
You couldn't make this up. Like, if
I'm telling you.
there's nothing out there that says, oh, by the way, do 91 episodes, and when you do 91 episodes, you'll find
Right.
your thing. The only thing I will say is this, right? If you can find something that puts you again in proximity of the path that you're going on, the universe will tell you its secrets if you listen, right?
I'm
And
telling you.
I was
Very good.
always ready
Very good.
there to
Very good.
listen. But at the same time, I think what's really important is uh I was very clear on my intentions of being a student to become a master, and I haven't mastered anything yet. I'm just getting warmed up.
Right.
So that was the intent. That was the what. The how. I was using a vehicle, and your vehicle maybe is podcasting. Maybe I think I'll give you an insight right now. What I truly believe is going to be powerful, and we're recording this in Q4 of 2025. I think with all this lovely technology that we have, I think in-person events.
Mm.
I did meetups as well. I still do meetups to this day. I think that's going to be a huge boost because people need to be connected.
Mhm.
I do like the one-on-one setting because you can have an intention with just the people that you admire, people you would trade places with, as I like to call it, on the air, regardless of where you are. Right? I think
Mhm.
Phillip, you're in Atlanta today. I'm in Boston. Like, what a time to be alive! We have technology. We just hop on, and
Mhm.
speed. Money loves speed, right? So I do
Mhm.
like having a show that's virtual, but at the same time, being in that lane opportunity, I do want to add one more thing because I think it's important, Phil, because I'm usually on the other side. So anything I have an insight I want to share.
Mhm.
Um, I think in this day and age, we get so caught up too in like the downloads, the views, etc.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
I don't know how many downloads I have because it's not a metric that I'm tracking. I think it's very important. The metrics that we track, sometimes you might, oh, I want likes, oh, I want views, oh, I want subscriptions. But there is no amount of subscriptions that will then be able to just have a direct correlation with the amount of opportunities that the podcast has open. I'm talking about for business opportunities, relationships, to even real estate deals that have come from the podcast. You can't measure that on a like or a subscribe. So I think being very clear on what your goal is and your intention, and I know you and I have talked about that. I'm like, what do you want this podcast to be? What is it? What is this a vehicle for? If it's education, let it be education. If it's networking, let it be networking. But be clear on your intention, and that will help you. Because I intend to be podcasting for the rest of my life. I don't see it stopping. The cadence might change here and there, but this is going to be a vehicle. Why would I stop? Of course, if I reflect and I have new insight, and I believe that at some point down the road that it needs to be canned, that's one thing. But I see this as a long-term vehicle that we'll continue to utilize.
Yeah, it's the way I look at it is the same way, just different language. It's the long-term game, right? If you're looking, for short-term gain here, for short-term gains, then this is maybe not the business. And our model is to create a forum to talk about the mortgage industry, and all that's within the mortgage industry. And so it's a very tight industry, and and that's okay, but it's still some great content that can come into this industry or this conversation, and it's my intention to find that content, invite them to the show like you, and to talk about it. So Ruben, listen, we have really gone in areas that I had no idea we would go in, but I'm so happy we did, because out of it all, I learned so much more about you and your path to success. And so, if in your passing words, if you would please lay out a path to success that pretty much any person that's listening could be able to take advantage of, let's just do that.
Yeah, path. So I'll start with where I started, because I do believe that's key. I think one of my favorite entrepreneurs, MJ DeMarco, talks about the paradox of practice, which is what you want to stay away from. That's when you follow somebody who isn't doing the thing that they said, that isn't using the vehicle that brought them to the thing. So for example, a perfect example is someone who used to be an entrepreneur maybe 2 years ago, and now they write books, but now the writing of the books is allowing them for their success to propel. Great. That's great if you want to be an author. But if you want to be someone who's doing the thing, find that person that's still doing the thing, that's done the thing at a very high level, that didn't just start doing the thing and then is teaching you about doing the thing. Because then that you have to understand how, because learning is an ongoing process, what worked yesterday may not work today. And I think that's very important, because I think what happens is, I'm not here to put down, I think there's a lot of education. Education is $1 billion industry. But you just want to make sure you're being very careful who you're learning from, and that they're the person that is still doing the thing that you want to do, or they have someone on their team that's doing the thing that's teaching you, and they're not teaching you outdated information. That's number one. So I say all that to say this: find proximity with someone who's achieved the thing you want to achieve, and in an ideal situation is still doing that thing. That's still mastery. They would have covered all ages, all timelines from before, the then, and the after, and where we're going, right? Mentorship, right? That's essentially what I'm saying. Proximity leads to then opportunities for mentorship. Usually mentors will want to help when they see someone who's taking action, or they see a little bit of themselves in you. And there is literally no age for this, right? Depending on where your audience is, I mean, you get mentors regardless of where you are. There's people who are willing to help, but you also need to lead with, when I think about all the doors that have opened, I had done something for them. And don't ask someone. So, number one, proximity, number two, mentorship. And then what can you do for that mentor? Even if it's a service, or even if it's being very keen and intentional on what they're looking for,
Mhm.
even making an introduction. Hey, Philip, I was having dinner with this mortgage broker, and I thought of you first because you're telling me you want to be surrounded by some of the best in the business, and I know it aligns with your notary signer business. Therefore, I just sent you a text intro and email intro. That will go a long way. I think the lazy way to try to help people is say, hey, how can I be of help? Well, damn it, you know what I'm doing, right? You know what I'm passionate about. You know what I'm doing on LinkedIn, or you know what my mission is on my about page on a website. So get familiar with it. Keep that in mind. And when there's something that aligns for that person, make a key introduction or refer them business. And that, whether you believe in karma, whether you're spiritual, whatever, energy, cannot be, created or destroyed, right? So it's gonna just come back full circle and bless you as well.
Mhm.
And that's your brand, that's your reputation.
Mhm.
And then the fourth thing I would say is just stay curious. I think there's so many levels. I've been surrounded. I'm always surrounded. I'm always either the person who's just getting warmed up in a room full of amazing individuals. If monetary is your goal, then it's like I'm the brokest one in the room and I'm paying for access. Don't be afraid to pay for access, because you'll get insights that can just completely transform your business. That mastermind community of being a constant learner, I don't see how you lose if you do those things. I really do not. And the beauty of it is, if you do those things, you don't have to have it all figured out. You simply doing those things, being in proximity, seeking a mentor, seeing how you can help a mentor, and staying in within a mastermind, it will give you clarity along the way. It just will. You're surrounded by people who care for you because you care for them, and therefore someone will give you guidance and some level of support and open up a door for you, and just be ready to do the same for them.
I love it. So the bottom line here, folks, is that build a mastermind community. And within that mastermind community are different levels, if you will, that you have to aspire to. But once you start building those levels, you'll look back and see what you built, which is this mastermind community. And that will be your incubator to really help, really for you to grow and achieve all of your goals, whatever they are within the real estate industry. So folks, listen. So Ruben, man, I could go on all day with you because you have such great information.
Thank you.
And not only the great information, but you have the accomplishments, right, to back it up, right?
Appreciate
And
that.
one of the things I look at is that people have great conversation, but what have you accomplished, right? And if you've been able, you have great conversation and you have great accomplishments, then you have earned my attention and my obviously my respect. And Ruben, you certainly earned my respect. So
Thank
thank
you,
you.
sir.
Yeah, you're more than welcome. So listen, so thank you for being on the show. You've been a great guest. And ladies and gentlemen, folks, again, this is Phillip Hogan. I am the host of Closing Market Weekly. You can find this content on our YouTube channel, Spotify, and Apple. So spend some time, look over, particularly YouTube. And if you'd like to revisit this content, you can by doing so. Ruben, you stay put. We got to talk after the show. But thank you once again. Bye now.
Thank you, Philip.
Thanks for tuning in to the Closing Market Weekly. If you found this episode valuable, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone in the industry. For more insights from the front lines of real estate closings, we'll see you next week.